your time, sir. Uh, First of all, I would like to ask you about your vision with Mosaic India and subsequently US.
See, before I talk about the overall vision that I have is basically all the resources that are spent throughout the globe, and especially in developed countries like Europe and US and emerging economies like India. All the resources, money, manpower, government and non-government resources that are spent, how can you maximize the impact of those resources? And by that what I mean is the money is going to be spent. Rather than counting how many services happened, how many classes happened, how about we start looking at what is the impact of each and everything that happens out there? So from that perspective, the vision that I have is contributing with our expertise, because Mosaic has depth of expertise in a wide variety of areas that can help human services sector, that is education, social services, mental health, public health, global initiatives and such. Our breadth of experience and expertise being all the way from social science research to evaluating these initiatives, these schemes, these projects, to how they are being implemented on the ground, right? As well as using technology to do this whole thing effectively, this whole process of collective feedback of impact effectively. So my vision is, how can we use this expertise that is the core part of Mosaic US, has been for the longest time, and apply it everywhere that we work. May it be in the US, where we are working with over, I guess, 20,000 organizations across the US in almost 42 states. May it be through our work in international development, where we are working in 29 developing countries, from Bangladesh to Uganda to DRC, Congo and such, to specifically what we're trying to do in Mosaic India. We started here 4.5 years ago, and here we're focusing on education, specifically education for the people who need the most help in climbing or starting to climb up the social ladder, if you will. So our vision is basically, how do we apply our multidisciplinary expertise using technology in the most effective way to improve the impact of the work that is happening in India for human services, specifically learning and education, not just in school and college settings, but beyond. May it be skill development, may it be employability skills, and so on and so forth, to have high impact such that the resources are used effectively and wisely, and most importantly, beneficiaries actually benefit, not just in terms of what they learn, but in terms of how they can apply that learning to improve their own lives, to climb the social ladder, and to be actively contributing and benefiting from the growth that India has been seeing in last 12, 13, 14 years.
How do you define, sir, how would you define your organization? Is it a solution provider or a service or a tech company?
Neither. It's an end result provider. What we invest in is the end result that we can help attain for the beneficiaries, maybe learners, students, going back to my earlier answer about people who need the most help in climbing up the social ladder. So we are an end result company. We believe in end result. That's our business model, and in this case, to repeat 20th time, how can we empower the most needy of the communities and populations, and the folks and the members of this community, youth, kids, adults. So we want to give them end results so that they can be part of the Indian, in context of Mosaic India, they can be a part of Indian growth, if you will. And how do we do that? You cannot do it either by just a technology or by just saying, I have XYZ services. Yes, of course, we have a solution, which is a holistic solution with some very strong components. but we strongly believe it's not just you have to use all the components or just, the key is how do you use the right combination of these components, may it be technology, may it be research, may it be evaluation, assessment, so on and so forth, curriculum design, teacher training, all the things that we have expertise in and all the areas that we provide services in. So how can we use the right combination of these to create a holistic solution on a scheme by scheme, initiative by initiative level to reach the end result for individuals out there. So I would say we are an end result company.
Sir, would you like to talk about some of the offerings of Mosaic, and also can you elaborate on the framework on which these offerings have been developed by Mosaic?
Yeah. So actually, yeah, thank you. And it leads right, from the previous question into this one. Our offerings are basically a combination of these expertise that I told you about. And they are, we cover the entire gamut, and we have at least, if you look at some of the people who are in the company, some of them have been doing it for 40 years. They are some of the world's best leaders in these particular fields. Myself, in technology, for example, I've traveled around the world speaking about what the future of the internet and media over the internet, all sorts of media over the network could be, how to deliver it in a secured manner, scalable manner, in effective data systems, online systems. I have been a world-renowned leader in that myself. Then if we look at some of the other folks, so ranging all the way from there to our expertise includes social science research, and which means knowing on the ground what is required, what the needs are, what effective schemes could be, to how to deliver the services as identified in the needs. So technology, social science research, once the schemes and programs are implemented out there on the ground, how to evaluate them, so evaluation services, how can evaluators be doing their job at an individual level, assessments, so assessment services, taking it all the way down to the existing staff and personnel and workforce that exists on the ground, teachers, coaches, administrators, government employees, NGOs, so how to train this workforce. So these being our services, social science research, evaluation, assessment, training the workforce on the ground, and technology to be able to do this all streamlined and effective manner. These beings are all our offerings, but the solution that we provide is a combination of these to specifically help in learning sector, if you will. That includes education, formal education, school as well as higher education, as well as several government schemes and NGO schemes that are out there for skill development, employability, and such. So so this is the market segment that we are looking at. These are our offerings that we create solutions that our solutions are composed of. And the framework that we have is basically, and that's I think the key difference. That's why I said it's an end result company. It's not a solutions company, not just a solutions company, or not just a software company. It's an end results company because the framework that we have, based on years of experience before we came to India, and now for 4.5 years, we've tested it on the ground through various pilots as well as projects in India, all the way from Chandigarh to Delhi to Bangalore to Indore to Chhattisgarh. Is the framework that we have is basically how do you take these various levels of expertise that we have, put it on the ground such that there is a constant feedback loop, such that we can guarantee end result in a timely, effective, and cost in a low cost manner, if you will. So that's our framework, and the framework is what we call 4Q. That's why a lot of our offerings we end up the prefix is 4Q because we have a complete 4-quadrant approach through which we use technology, research, training of the workforce out there, as well as the contents used to deliver knowledge, to deliver learning in a very effective manner so that we can guarantee outcomes at a mass scale in a very quickly and efficient manner.
So Mosaic started its operations in the US and then moved to India. Any particular reason that you started in US and not in India?
Interesting question. It's almost like a chicken and egg situation, if you will. The vision of what can be done through social sciences and giving it that much heft and validity, if you will, and by heft and validity I mean giving it that much credit in day-to-day operations, is always been a very matured in the West, you know, where they have treated social sciences almost at par with real sciences, that may be physics, chemistry, engineering, right? So just because of that reason, there's so many more engineers and doctors that come out of India than, let's say, PhD, education experts, or there are a lot of education experts, but when you get to the hardcore social science research, if you will. So in US, this field has been there for 40, 50 years. So when I got this idea of how you could be creating such frameworks to have end result outcomes based delivery, knowledge delivery mechanisms out in the field, a lot of work was already done in the US. I got an opportunity to do it almost 14 years ago as a big national US grant. So I got an opportunity to get my hands dirty myself, roll up the sleeves and see it getting done and do it yourself, how to create such frameworks and such models in the US. So the opportunity was there to learn, number one, and most importantly, to capitalize on the work that was done 30 years prior. So it only made sense to not reinvent the wheel, to learn from what the experiences have been in other places. And and we're US based, but we've been doing work in all 29 countries even before. And then 4.5 years ago, we decided to focus very much on India. And there is, just because I am from India, I still have very strong roots here. I come from a small town in India, and I still very strongly believe and identify myself with small town India, if you will, and the folks out there. So it was just a natural progression as our US company was doing good, as we were helping all the great initiatives there, all the way from Gates Foundation's work in New York City school districts to Johnson & Johnson's foundation's work as to what can be happening in early childhood development, to working with states of Hawaii and Alaska and Arkansas and Florida, to see how stimulus money, when Obama came to power, when President Obama came to power, how that is being used. So we had a lot of experience there. We were doing very good there, and so it was just about time that we started investing some of that expertise, resources to do things in a very focused manner here in India. And I come from here, so why not? And India is, and even if I were not from here, India is where there's so much money is indeed being invested in the socio-economic infrastructure, if you will. So there is a good business model, number one. Number two, there's a great need. And third, and most importantly, that's where my heart lies, there's a great opportunity to actually have an impact in the lives of the people who all these schemes and projects inherently are spending resources to help anyways.
What were the challenges? You mentioned most of them, but still, were there any specific difficulties and opportunities in the US market? And when you were entering in the Indian market, what were the challenges faced that time?
The challenges that we faced in US, that we continue to face in US, and the challenges that we face in India and continue to face in India are inherently related to the approach that we have. It goes back to your very first question or second question. It's not a solutions company. It's not a software company. We believe in end results and how can we create holistic hybrid solutions for each initiative based on our expertise. It's a very cutting edge way of doing things. It's easy. So I can explain those challenges from a variety of angles. One is how to grow business. Other is internally, operationally. It's a very interesting challenge, and I've cherished it, and I continue to do that. Even your own employees, and your own team members, your own colleagues and partners, how do you explain them this big vision? It's a fascinating challenge, if you will. Everybody being able to understand this big vision. In terms of business growth, when you're out there looking for new business, number one, this business that we're looking for in the US, here, other places, is big initiatives, right? And it's and they have the need set. We want software, we want social science research, we want evaluation, we want assessments. So the biggest challenge that we face is when you come with a hybrid approach, you have to create the market for yourself. So basically, yeah, we've been pioneers in what we were doing there. We are pioneers in what we're doing here. And so most of the challenges that we face actually are related to that, creating a market and then making sure your team's morale and your company's finances can stay long enough such that while the market is being created, the vision is being vetted, the, the train keeps moving, if you will. So that has been the biggest challenge. And on that point, I do want to note, I don't think particularly I have faced, there is all this hoopla about India has these challenges and these are all the benefits in the US and so on and so forth. I don't believe in those. Every country, every region has their own culture of doing things. And maybe we might have been impacted by that, maybe not, but we have a big surmounting challenge that we deal with on a day-to-day basis in first place, and that is a big vision, creating a market for it, and then thriving in that market. So,
Mosaic being one of the pioneers, as you mentioned just now, so how difficult you find in convincing people about solutions and the need for it in India?
the need is glaring. So let me answer it exactly the other way around, in reverse order. You said, convincing about the vision and then the needs. I would add one more thing to it, and then that we can do it, right? So the vision, we have the capacity and capability to do it, and the need. The need is the easiest one. Go out in the field and maybe in different language, everybody will say, oh yeah, we've been trying to use technology for the longest time, it will not work. Or all these companies have come and done a lot of research, and what comes out of it, right? Or we have all these teacher seminars all the time, nothing happens. So the need is very well out there, that just splinter portions of the expertise that I'm talking about doesn't work. You have to have a holistic approach. Everybody understands there's a need, that there's a gap. So that's where the vision comes into picture. And yes, it's very simple, come to think of it. I'm not talking rocket science. I'm saying that your social science, your research, your evaluation, your assessments and technology have to be all tied in together, as well as teacher training and so on and so forth. It's just explaining to the folks that this is a simple thing that I'm talking about, nothing major, and that we can do it. It's less of a challenging, but more that it needs time. And it needs audience, and it needs open mind to find the right audience to be able to tell this vision to, and that we can do it. Has it been challenging? Yes, but it all depends on who the audience is.
So what is the market share of Mosaic in the US? And are investments in education in India really working out in this phase, and the solution provider, from the solution provider point of view in the education sector, because it is still in its nascent phase?
As far as market share in US is concerned, this is such a huge field we are talking about. If you look at human services initiatives in general, it's like what, hundreds of billions of dollars a year are being spent. If you include USAID, government, foundations, so on and so forth. So just the fact that what's a market share it's not the right question. It becomes all the more difficult because it becomes all the more not so right question to answer because of the different domains we are talking about, right? However, if we do pick up particular initiatives, for example, when it comes to education of young kids and early childhood development work, I think we are one of the US's premier leaders in the space. At the state, at the foundation, at the national level, anytime anybody has a need, they come to us, we don't go to them. Similarly, when it comes to economic empowerment, if you will, we have some unbelievably successful, ongoing for 6-year initiatives that talk about how to help youth enter the workforce properly. We've been working with University of South Florida and with their and our collaboration together in terms of at least knowledge space. We cover 80% of the space in this. When it comes to, going back to the employment related things that US government has been spending on since the economy went down in 2008, we are doing significant work there as well. So that's the question about the US aspect and how our market share there is. From Indian perspective, have our investments paid off? We are not expecting them to be paying off just yet. We have spent 3 years of doing research and development. We are in this for a long haul. We have been in US for 12 years, and we didn't start showing impact and results until pretty much our 4th or 5th year of our operations. And I do not expect it to be any different here, and maybe even longer here, because the market is still getting ready, number one, and secondly, and most importantly, there's already so much happening out there. There are companies, software companies saying we can do it. There are all these international research companies and universities saying we can do it. And they have been doing things only to fail, right? So there's too much noise out there. So going back to my scientific engineering research background, there's too much, the signal to noise ratio is pretty bad in that term. So anyways, yes, we are in this for long run, and eventually the key is where we will be in 10 years from now, where our investments pay off, and most importantly, how many lives would have improved in 10 years from now. So yeah.
In the US, you are functioning in the social sector and the education domain largely. In India, a lot is happening in the e-governance sector. So would you like to explore that market in India?
So e-governance has, as far as I understand, multiple facets, right? One is being able to submit your Nagarpalika water application online, right? Just to use one example. Then the aspect of e-governance is, which is not as easily as defined, as far as I've looked at the definition of e-governance, the way we define in India is using the portals and such, right? That's definitely well defined, outreach portals where you can go and get access to everything. But then the next aspect is basically where we really come in is governance in a very informed manner. And less so governance, but more implementation of social service and education and learning and skill development programs on the ground. So as long as our core vision and what we're trying to do is included in the definition of e-governance, we are already doing that. But we are not in the business of creating portals. We are not in the business of doing outreach just for from the governance perspective, from the transparency perspective. It is great importance. I think things start from there, including like the UID project that that Mr. Nandan Nilekani was starting or is heading, right? So all those are basic foundations for good, effective social work to happen, but that is not the business model that is part of our vision.
So, keeping in mind of all the much talked about challenges in India as compared to the West, where do you see Mosaic 5 years down the line?
I actually presented a research paper on this 2 years ago, where I actually compared one of the education leaders in the US and I, based on my vision, we compared the two models, the two growth that could be represented in a national, very renowned #1 conference in the field. And the vision that I see basically is in 5 years from now, and I'll just repeat the title of my research paper, and that is from 0 to 1 million learners helped effectively and improved their lives. And that's the way I see, I said we are an end result company. We have shown those end results for millions of learners, millions of of our community members across the country take benefit from using, various initiatives that already are in the play. And I think that's what we are invested in at the end of the day, making that impact. Yes, we are not a non-profit, we are not an NGO, but from a revenue perspective, it is very straightforward. So many resources to such extent are already being spent in helping these communities, and our services for a fee let you use those resources in an effective manner so that you can actually attain the end result that you're looking for. So yes, helping millions and millions of needy population, not needy population who can use what we have to offer in terms of improving their lives, their learning, to climb up the social ladder, and that also is a revenue model.
Thank you so much for sharing your views on the completely new and offbeat kind of a sector, that is the solution provider sector. Like, lot is still to happen in India. So, and it was really a really optimistic idea about the whole way of going about it. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you.